All right. Hey, Vikings fans, welcome into another episode of the Skol Hop. I'm Evan.
I'm Austin.
We're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer, talking about the Vikings.
Yeah, we do. And I was ye of little faith. I had to spin the wheel of purple punishments, and you can debate on whether or not I succeeded in the challenge that I had, but oh well. I think I did it.
You did better than I could have done. After that, we take a quick look at the Vikings' very narrow win over the Cardinals.
Yep, and we got to have a really cool conversation with Dustin Baker and Janik Eckardt, both of Vikes Now and Vikings territory and purple PTSD and all those fun things, and that was a lot of fun.
And of course, we had to talk with them, and we talked a little bit later, just the two of us, about Kirk Cousins' return to US Bank Stadium as the Falcons come to Minnesota to take on the Vikings this coming week. So that's going to be exciting. It's going to be a good game to watch.
Yeah, it'll be fun, but until then, sit back, relax, listen to episode 69 of the Skol Hop. Skol.
Skol.
We just want to say thank you to episode sponsor Big Top Ventures. If you're looking to take an all-inclusive trip to Mexico or Jamaica anytime soon, or maybe even a little far out, go ahead and reach out to Big Top Ventures and let them know. They'll get you all hooked up with everything you need. You do that by sending an email to bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Just let them know you want to go to Mexico or Jamaican all-inclusive, and they will help you with everything else after that. Yeah, they're great. I'm going soon. Maybe even the next episode might be recorded from a tropical location on my part. I don't know, but either way, it'll be exciting. You should definitely work with them. They're amazing. Thank you, Big Top Ventures.
Yeah, thanks, Big Top, for sponsoring the episode. All right. Well, we switched things up a little bit with this episode, and we decided to introduce our beer on our TikTok channel. So head over there if you want kind of the full, like, opening the can, pouring it, trying it for the first time. But we're trying Keg Creek Brewing's Mas. It's their Mexican lager. It's pretty good. Yeah. And I was in the mood for like a Corona type beer. I saw this on the shelf and I picked it up, and yeah, here we are. We're trying it, and so far so good. I think we're both enjoying it quite a lot.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you're going to enjoy this next segment though. You picked against the Vikings again.
Preseason.
Preseason.
And you know, at the end of the episode last week, it kind of pulled out a curveball.
This is kind of a double whammy because you picked against the Vikings in both places.
I did. So, yeah, preseason, definitely picked against the Vikings. Those picks are what matters for the Purple Punishment segment. You had faith. And I think the next few games we flip-flop. We got a couple of weeks at least where one of us will be spinning. It's just who's right and who's wrong. I was wrong. The Vikings won. They tried really, really hard to not win and really hard to not make me spin the wheel, but darn it, they figured it out and they still won, and it was an exciting game. I'm not excited about purple punishments. I think it's going to be one punishment, and I'm mentally prepared for it.
All right. Well, should we get it over with?
I guess so. Just go ahead and spin it.
Here we go.
Oh, man.
You will be doing the Sprite challenge.
Okay, I completely forgot about this. All right. Whew.
There's a warm bottle of Sprite on top of the fridge. Otherwise, there's cold Sprite in the fridge.
I don't know what would be worse. Would warm or cold be worse? I'm going to go warm. It's in my hand.
Go for it.
All right, so let's recap. Sprite challenge. What do I have to do?
I don't know what the rules of the Sprite challenge are. Officially, I think you just have to like take a big chug of it and then try not to burp.
What does Google say?
Well, it says you need to eat 2 bananas and then drink a bottle of Sprite as quickly as possible. The challenge is based on the idea that the body can't digest both substances simultaneously and usually results in vomiting due to the chemical reaction.
Oh, no. Okay, well,
We're not going to do that Sprite challenge.
No.
That was never our like preconceived notion. That's just what Google told me. I think you should just chug as much as you can and try not to burp and see what happens.
Okay, I'm like 1% concerned about seeing the Sprite again. Is there any kind of a oh crap bucket or box or something in this room right now?
Should we pause quick and I can go get you one?
I mean, the only garbage can I see is a mesh garbage can.
I'll go get you a bucket. We'll pause here. We'll get you a vessel just in case.
Just in case. I don't think it'll happen. I'm not usually one that does that, but I mean, you never know. Chugging Sprite. I'm going to try to do this too.
All right. We'll be right back.
All right. Bing.
All right, so got you a bucket.
Yep.
I got you a towel. It's back here, ready to go, just in case.
All right, I don't think I'll need it, but just in the off chance, when that happens, you don't really have too much of a warning. So,
and let's set the expectation right now. I'm not expecting you to chug the whole bottle.
I like that. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm gonna try.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna fail.
I'm just telling you. You don't like. It's kind of like the saltine challenge a few weeks ago. Like. That was impossible. I don't expect you to, especially we've already been drinking beer.
Yeah, that's the only thing is my stomach is not empty right now. So I think I just need to do this. We've been belaboring this, so here we go. Skol.
I'll make sure to put some good music under this. Build the suspense. Hype this up. Can Austin do it? Can he do the Sprite challenge?
Maybe. It's also like Sprite's good. This isn't like apple cider vinegar. Yeah. It's just the bubbles and the carbonation. I'm gonna try.
Your stomach's going to be a wreck after this.
All right. Skol.
Skol. All right, here he goes. This is a full bottle of Sprite. Oh, wow. He's like shotgunning it. He's going for it. He's squeezing it. He's trying to get it all in there. You might have trapped some in the bottom of the bottle. I don't know. Whew. Oh, wow. You got a lot of that. You got 85% of that. And that's gonna be it. You did so much better on that than I could have ever done. That was
now,
incredible.
how long do I have to go without burping?
I don't know, but yeah. Well, I guess we found that out.
That was a deep burp. I tried to hold it in so bad. All right, well, I don't know how entertaining that was. It's burning. It's not near as bad as the cinnamon challenge was. No, I'm just kidding. I don't need the bucket. I'm gonna burp again though. Oh, that was a deep one. Maybe we can put some trigger warnings or something, or maybe take those out because I'm sure there's some people that will stop listening just because of that.
I'll edit some of those things so that they're not as obtrusive. But
all right.
Yeah, Sprite challenge. It's possible. You can pretty much chug a full 16-ounce bottle of Sprite pretty quickly if you try hard enough.
I think I made a mistake because I started squeezing, and I think if I would have not done that and just tried to chug and like left, the ability for air to get in the bottle, maybe I would have been better. All right, well
this is going to be the rest of the episode. That might have been it.
I might have one more in there, but the three burps, three deep burps.
You still have like all of a beer.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is carbonated. So
yeah, again, I don't know how entertaining that was going to be, but maybe the music underneath that will make it better. At least I succeeded in that, or our version of it. Because I was not going to eat 2 bananas. Did you know I'm kind of allergic to bananas?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, it's only interesting to me and people around me if I'm eating bananas.
Well, we've been friends for long enough that I feel like I should have known that, but I didn't. So
it's not a dead, go to the hospital allergy. It will give me some ocular migraines, which like messes with my vision for a little bit, and then it comes back. It's weird. Nobody cares.
Wow. Well, I'm glad we didn't do that because you still have to drive home tonight.
Yeah, I would not have eaten 2 bananas. I would have just taken the L.
I think this would have been a good recap moment, really quick, of what's left on the wheel.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it. What do we got left?
After the Sprite challenge made its way off the wheel, and we've been eliminating everything that's been on the wheel after we've done it, we still have Pie in the Face, which I think would be fine. It's going to just get in your beard, and that's going to be awful.
Yeah, it'll be just ucky and uncomfortable, and
you're going to have to go home and shower afterwards. Yep. I'll just wipe my face off with a towel and be good, because I can't grow facial hair at all.
You can.
It'd take me a while. Pie in the face, drinking out of Packers cups.
That's just embarrassing.
Drinking out of Bears cups. Yeah, as a Vikings podcast, that's tough. Waxing a limb. That's the one I'm most scared about. We have those, I don't know, cherry blossom Nair strips, and we're just going to put them on something, and we're just going to rip them off.
So
I'm scared of that one.
Before we found out that I was doing the Sprite challenge, I said, I think it's going to be one of them. That's the one I thought I was going to have to do. And I've already decided I'm going to do my calf.
Okay.
So, yeah. Keep your eyes peeled for that one.
The weather has turned colder, and I wear pants most of the time now, so I thought
about doing my chest. I'm not one of those guys that it looks like I'm wearing a sweater no matter what. We have a friend like that. But there's a little bit that it would be painful and probably more entertaining than my leg, but I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, what else we got?
Consume an entire jar of pickles. So we have 2 full jars of pickles here, and we would have to eat the whole thing, pickles and juice. It'd have to be an empty jar.
And honestly, with a light beer like this Moss, that actually probably would have paired well.
The pickle and I like pickles.
Well, have you heard of the spear in a beer?
No.
Usually it's like a light beer like this, or like a Coors Light or a Bud Light or a Busch Light or whatever, and you literally take a pickle spear and you just put in there. Maybe you throw a splash of pickle juice in there, and people do it.
All right. I've heard of pickle beer before.
Yeah.
But anyways, that would be interesting. We have a pretty interesting little knitted Vikings hat. We actually have a few different head garments that we could wear. So we'd have to wear that for the whole episode. That wouldn't be terrible, but you would get itchy. Sitting in a child's chair.
Yep, that would be funny.
Another one. So we'd probably put that down in front here, and I've got a little kid's chair and table set that we'd have to sit at instead of this nice little setup here. And then the last one that's still on the wheel is win an eBay auction.
That would be funny. We would try to find a quick, minute long left eBay auction and try to win it right away. Obviously, you can find eBay auctions for $1 left and right, and maybe even a Vikings card or something, but that would still be funny to follow along with.
Well, we've still got plenty of options on the wheel, and we've still got a handful of games left in this season, and it sounds like both of us are going to be subject to the wheel at one point or another down the stretch here in the last little bit of the season. So that'll be fun to kind of see how that all plays out. I'm really hoping that I don't have to wax a limb. Everything else, cakewalk for me, I'll be happy with. If I have to wax a limb, that's going to be tough. I'm not looking forward to that, but
I think it'll be fine and entertaining.
Hopefully not. Well, we should probably spend some time talking about this Vikings win over the Cardinals. The Vikings did win, and it was a close one. Looked like maybe for a second there it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah,
actually, for a while they were down by a lot, and I think I saw it was Sam Darnold's biggest comeback of his career. They were down 19-6, and they came all the way back to win 23-22. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think I also saw, it's almost the same stat. I think it was either anytime Sam Darnold has had, it was either a 13-point deficit or a 19-point deficit. I think it was 13. Anytime he's been down by that much, he has never come back. So first for a lot of things. It was the biggest Vikings comeback since the largest comeback in NFL history in 2022 against the Colts. Not quite as dramatic as that game, but yeah, still ultimately fun to have been a part of. We weren't a part of the game, but yeah, I'm glad for the outcome.
Yeah, I think I texted you. I made one of my kids cry at the end because I just got so excited when Shaq Griffin caught that interception to seal the game that I just burst with excitement, and she was not expecting that, and she was a little emotional after that, so I apologize to my children.
My dog was nervous around me for no reason. It's not like I don't even yell during games, but she could just tell, and she was sitting in the corner of the room what's going on here? She got all the loves, but yeah, she could tell it was a tense situation.
Well, the Vikings won. It was great, but let's talk some roses and thorns here. We're going to abbreviate this a little bit from what we've been doing because we've got some other stuff coming up that we'll talk about here.
It's a good episode.
It's a great episode. But I'll start with a rose, and then I'll let you share the thorn. Sam Darnold, man, he's been stone cold. He's just been like a sniper at the end of these games. He's been super accurate. He's been poised, calm, controlled. And it seems like he and Kevin O'Connell are just exactly on the same exact page. Maybe they're not. Maybe Kevin O'Connell's pulling out his hair on the sideline. I don't know. But whatever's happening is happening well. And he was perfect in overtime 2 weeks ago against the Bears. And in this game, he was great down the stretch. He played clutch in that second half, had a really good game. You've got a tweet here from Will Ragetz. It says he was dealing on the Vikings' final 3 possessions after going down by 13 points. His pocket movement, accuracy, decisiveness, total command of the plan, 12 completions, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. He delivered in the clutch for the second straight week. Yeah, that's just like an all-encompassing tweet right there from Will Ragetz. Just that hits the nail on the head. Sammy D was that shot in the arm that this team needed, and he got the ball where it needed to go, and ultimately that was the end zone, and that was the deciding factor for this game. It was awesome.
We were all complaining there for a couple of weeks. Seemed like he was a turnover machine, throwing picks and being responsible for fumbles, but really the last 3 games, outside of that one pitch that wasn't caught by Aaron Jones against the Titans?
I think so.
Really, Sam Darnold has seemed to have figured it out. Almost like overcorrected, because it seemed like he was gun shy. Wouldn't throw to Justin Jefferson, it seemed like, for a little bit, because every time he did for a game or so, he was picked off. But yeah, he's at the end of the last 2 games against the Cardinals and then against the Bears, just stone cold. The overtime series against the Bears, he was, I think, 6 for 6 for 90 yards. Yeah, that's what you want from your quarterback. That is the definition of mid-season form, and you want them to start peaking right in front of the playoffs.
You're still burping a little bit.
I can tell. You can probably hear me stop and pause really quick. I think I'm towards the end of it, but I'm still feeling that Sprite.
On that topic, though, it's not quite a thorn yet. I'll save the thorn for a second here. Okay. But I still feel like he's hesitant to throw towards Justin Jefferson. He's been able to find Jordan Addison, although Addison was a little quieter in this game against the Cardinals. He's been finding TJ Hawkinson, which has been great. And even though Aaron Jones has had some problems hanging onto the ball, Aaron Jones has played well, relatively speaking, as well in the last handful of games. But it's definitely frustrating when you've got the best wide receiver in the league and you can't find him.
Yeah.
And I'm still a little frustrated personally that Justin Jefferson didn't get 100 yards. He only had 99. Yeah. Like, come on, man.
But he did have a great second half. A really good second half.
And so that it's not a thorn necessarily, but it's something that Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson, and Sam Darnold have to figure out. And maybe they just all need to get in the room and watch a bunch of film together, figure it out, go back to some previous games and try to start figuring out, like, okay, I'm Justin Jefferson. This is what I was seeing on this play. I was bracketed by 2 guys here, but if you find me in the soft spot of the zone here, throw the ball at this point and you'll get it to me. Like, and Kevin O'Connell and Sam can kind of start to figure that out. And I know nothing about play calling. I've never been on the sideline of anything more than a 7th grade football game. But I don't know. To me, that seems like the logical next step in the progression of this offense is getting those 3 guys on the same page. When you can do that, you can start to figure that out. One other small little thing that I'll add is it seemed like the offensive line maybe regressed slightly.
Yeah, there was something there.
This last game, they weren't playing as well as they have, and that's got to be fixed too. You got to change that. You got to give Sam Darnold enough time to make those reads. And he was making better reads in the second half, but Sam Darnold kind of looked lost in the first half for sure. Yeah. And it was frustrating.
The good thing is, and probably why it's not a full-fledged thorn, is they did seem to figure it out and turn it on and ultimately win the game.
Yeah.
And all to turn it back to the ultimate rose is Sam Darnold, stone cold. He's been great. All right, a thorn... and maybe it's not as crazy as we think it is, but there have been too many close games. Too many lulls, too many tough fought games. But I guess, and while it's definitely a thorn, it doesn't make you feel good. It gives you an increased heart rate at the end of games here lately. But I guess that's kind of the way, if you really think about the whole season, all of these games have been going, not just for the Vikings. Alec Lewis says on Twitter, of the 388 NFL games so far this year, probably 389 now with Monday Night Football, 307 of them have been decided by 8 points or less. So that's a one-score game, and that's kind of crazy. So the Vikings, it's frustrating that a lot of them lately have been really close. This Cardinals game is the definition of close, a one-point game. But they keep winning. They're 10-2, so there can't be too many things to complain about. Still, that's my biggest thorn. Too close, too frustrating, and they just need to blow some people out.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of wish for those blowout games, and I don't know, maybe this is just an aspect of Kevin O'Connell's coaching that we have to embrace. Maybe he's just the king of those close games. Maybe he's the king of situational football and knowing how to manipulate being down by a little bit, maybe knowing how to manipulate being up by a little bit and maintaining that lead. I think things change if you don't have Brian Flores as your defensive coordinator, because the defense has really come in and sealed these games, quite a few of them. I mean, it hasn't been, okay, offense, you have the ball, 2-minute drill, go march down the field. It's offense, we need you to score, and then we need the defense to come back out and stop. And that's exactly what happened in this Cardinals game. The offense marches down and scores to go up by 1. And then the defense goes out to prevent the Cardinals from scoring. And we were all saying, oh, did they score too soon? Twitter was, and leave it up to that Brian Flores defense to just, nail in the coffin. Shaq Griffin caught that game-sealing interception, and the game's over.
Jonathan Grenard before that gets that strip sack that the Cardinals still landed on, but
yeah. And that was an interesting wrinkle too, because they took a timeout so Jonathan Grenard could catch his breath. He was gassed.
Yeah.
And I think that's good coaching in the moment too. We don't need this necessarily for anything else. We're up by enough, and I think Kevin O'Connell just put all his chips on the table and was telling Brian Flores in that moment, I have full confidence that you guys are going to end this game. I know you will do it, and that's why I'm going to burn this time out so that this guy can get back out there. And that proved to be the right move. And then Shaq Griffin just got in the right place and made that game-sealing pick. It was awesome.
Absolutely. All right, game balls. I think we're going to share our opinions on game balls this week, right?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So I'll start with offense. You can go to defense, and then we'll finish with special teams. And then we'll kind of wrap up this early segment here. I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
For the offensive game ball. Justin Jefferson, like we said, 99 yards. I think was it 7 catches or something like that.
7 or 8, something like that.
On 9 targets. Not his best game by any stretch of the means, but not his worst, and one of his better games recently. So that was encouraging to see. Yeah, he was 7 catches for 99 on 9 targets. Didn't get into the end zone, but made it count when we needed it to count. And I know he's been frustrated lately, quietly frustrated, not like I'm ready to quit the team and I'm just going to walk off, and he's not going to do an Antonio Brown and take his shirt off.
Yeah. Well, that's not Justin Jefferson, but
no. But I mean, I'm hyperbolizing a little bit. But it was just good to see him.
I see what you did there. You were hyperbolizing.
No, that was unintentional, but whatever.
We'll take it.
Anyways, the moment has passed.
Yeah, I just totally knocked you off your groove there.
It was good to see Justin Jefferson have a decent game, especially in the second half. We were pounding the table in the first half. Get him the ball. Like, the Vikings were struggling. Sam Darnold looked a little lost. The offensive line was kind of crumbling. Even the defense was allowing Kyler Murray and the Cardinals offense to do some stuff. And we were just kind of pounding the table, like, get the ball to Justin Jefferson. I think there was a text between us that said something nearly like that. Like, get him the ball. He's the highest paid player, non-quarterback player in the league. He deserves to get some touches. And I think maybe there was something said at halftime. It was like, I don't care if you threw 3 or 4 interceptions or whatever it was, and you targeted him the whole time, Sam Darnold, a few games ago. Get the ball to this guy. Quit being so timid and find him.
Yep. Good things happen when Justin Jefferson gets the ball.
So, again, despite not scoring, 99 yards, really good game. I think he deserves the game ball just for being a warrior the last handful of weeks and continuing to be the consummate team player.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only other player I would have said would have been Sam Darnold, but we already kind of hashed that out in the roses. All right, for defense, I think Shaq Griffin, he called game.
Yeah.
The whole cornerback group, once Stephon Gilmore went down, their job got harder.
Yeah.
Specifically Fabian Moreau, who looked like he had a pretty rough game, but I don't know, anytime you don't think you're going to play and then all of a sudden you're playing the whole game and they're picking on you, that's just a tough game for Fabian Moreau. I think he'll be better than that if he has to play continuingly. But yeah, Chad Griffin definitely deserves that game ball. Maybe you share it with also Jonathan Grenard and Byron Murphy, who also got an interception.
Yep.
But yeah, I not to belabor it, Griffin called game, got the pick when the Vikings needed it the most, and that was it. That was the last highlight they needed that game.
Yeah. And then I think on special teams, there's really no one else to give it to other than John Parker Romo. I mean, the Vikings won by 1, and I know he missed a kick in this game, but if he misses even one more, whether it's an extra point or a field goal, this game maybe doesn't end the way that it did, and it maybe doesn't end in a win for the Vikings.
Yeah.
So I'm really pleased with him. He's arguably the best, like, fill-in kicker that there's ever been.
Yep.
And I think he'll find a home somewhere else next year once Will Reichert is healthy.
Oh, he'll find a home the next week after Will Reichert's healthy.
Oh, yeah, easily.
But yeah, I agree. Parker Romo definitely deserves a special teams game ball. Yeah, no ifs, ands, or buts about that. It's unfortunate that after years and years and years of the Vikings having seemingly some kicking woes, and that position was cursed for the team, and now the Vikings found 2 solid kickers, at least guys that have proven they can make 50-plus yard field goals. So yeah, Parker Romo, I'm a fan of his until he's on a team that I hate. But yeah, if he goes to somewhere like the Ravens or something like that, I'm still rooting for Parker Romo. He's a good kicker.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, I think we'll wrap things up here. We're going to move into an interview with Dustin Baker and Janik Eckardt. Surprising kind of addition to our monthly routine with Dustin Baker. So that's been a lot of fun to hang out with Dustin, but it's going to be pretty cool to add Janik in there as well.
Yeah, can't wait.
So we'll send you over to that, and we'll see you back when we're done. All right, Skol Hoppers, well, welcome back. We have frequent friend of the show, Dustin Baker, joining us, but also for the first time, and Janik, I'm going to say your name really wrong, so I'm sorry, please correct me. We got Janik Eckardt?
Yeah, was pretty much perfect.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Well, everybody knows, or should know at this point, Dustin and Janik are both frequently on Vikes Now and Vikings Territory, and we're both huge fans of both Dustin and Janik, and we're really grateful to have both of them on the show, and Janik for the first time. So welcome in, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Yo, what up? Yeah. It's wonderful to be here at 10-2, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. Who would have thought? Who would have thought we'd be here at 10-2? Who would have thought we'd be here at 5-0? You know, it's just all been a great season. I'm having a lot of fun. I know we all are.
Oh, yeah. It's been great. Well, we'll get things kicked off here. We're going to kind of bounce back and forth between you guys. We're just going to kind of rapid fire some questions. So, Janik, we're going to start with you. And obviously the Vikings are 10-2 right now. But something that kind of developed, I think, or something that the broadcast brought up in this most recent game was how Kevin O'Connell's pretty good in these one-score games. I think Kevin Seifert tweeted out, I think it was yesterday or Sunday, that he's 24-9 in these one-score games. So the question I have for you is, should we be concerned about these close games with Kevin O'Connell, or is this just an aspect of his coaching that we just need to embrace and be okay with it?
We should not be concerned at all, because roughly 80% of games in the NFL are one-score games. So we're not the outlier, the only team that's doing this. Every team is, so that's totally fine. And as long as we're finding ways to win, it's just Kevin O'Connell just seems to be good at that, and just brings the perfect play calls late in games, and I can live with close games and close wins.
Yeah. Can't we just get some 40 or 50 burgers like Ben Johnson putting up with the Lions, though? I mean, come on.
I mean, we got some not so close games early in the season, and maybe we can get back to it, but it just doesn't seem to be Vikings DNA right now.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I guess a win is a win, and it sounds cliche to say that, but at 10-2, you take any win you can get, I guess. Dustin, for you, should the Vikings be looking for another cornerback? I don't know how serious this hamstring injury is. There is going to be really for Stephon Gilmore, and I guess Fabian Moreau. He was shoved in the fire really quick with no preparation right away, but he did not look great. So should they be looking to sign anybody else?
Well, let's see. It'd pretty much be Patrick Peterson, that caliber of player who has experience. And he said about a month and a half ago that he wanted to come back to the Vikings. Like, if somebody was going to give him a call, he said he loved Kevin O'Connell. Surprise, surprise. This is I was telling you guys, you sons of guns, that we were due for a cornerback injury, a CB injury, and I knew it would happen, and it happened this week. Thankfully, it's not devastating, like, oh my God, he's going to IR like everybody else. I would roll with what you have, because I personally am one of those Dwight McLaughlin truthers that wants to see him in action. Fabian Moreau, that one pass interference was bullshit, but he got cooked on the play of Harrison. And that's just how it kind of goes. The Vikings made this bed. This is their cornerback depth. I guess we counted our lucky stars that we had Gilmore, because he didn't show up till late in the summer. If they brought somebody in like Patrick Peterson, it would signal to me that perhaps Gilmore will be gone for 2 or 3 games, and I don't think anybody would be mad if they went and got a veteran corner. But you do have Moreau, who with a full week of practice should get back to mediocre, and then the upside of McLaughlin, and goes without saying that this would be a fabulous time when Kyrie Jackson probably would have started to get snaps. So that's another thing that sucks. I would endorse a Patrick Peterson-like signing, but I'm just kind of grateful that my cornerback injury prediction was only a hamstring, and it looks like Gilmore will be fine and probably be back within the next 2 or 3 weeks if he doesn't play Sunday.
Yeah, that's true. I did think that the pass interference, and it's not the BS one you're talking about, but the one that Fabian Moreau basically just tackled the receiver because he knew he wouldn't get him. I mean, that's kind of savvy. He knew what he was doing. He was tackling him so that it wasn't a touchdown. But I thought that was kind of savvy, and totally I'd be very upset if I was a Cardinals fan about that play.
Yeah, Fabian Moreau's got a lot of experience, so this isn't some fringe backup moron. This is a guy who's played a lot and started a lot of NFL football, so I won't judge him on that game alone, and I will just bide my time, though, for Gilmore to get back, because when we do get to the postseason, Gilmore is the type of player who's been there, and you can count on him to shut down the league's best receivers, even at 34 years old.
Yeah, he's been really reliable, and he's been fun to watch in purple, too. It's been awesome. All right, Janik, we'll come back around the horn to you here. Similar thread here on the topic of injuries. Reichard and DePaula, as far as I know, are up on their 4 weeks on the IR. Are you guys expecting them to make a return, either one or the other or both, here in the next week or two, or are they out for a few more weeks?
Well, it just depends on how far they are in their recoveries. If they are healthy, I totally expect them to play, because there's a reason why they were the top guys to start the season. Rijkaard has been perfect before his injury, and DePaula is a two-time Pro Bowler. He's a two-time All-Pro even. So once they are healthy, they will be playing, but I don't think the Vikings need to rush them as long as the kicking operation is somewhat functional.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it is true. I mean, I think we did see a little sign of wavering from John Parker Romo with his missed kick against the Cardinals, but it didn't really seem to faze him too much because he made everything after that. So
yeah, I'm not too concerned about Parker Romo right now, and it's the cliche. The other cliche statement is, "Holy cow, the Vikings suddenly have figured out how to find good kickers." And maybe a team like the Ravens are going to be licking their chops for Parker Romo but ultimately the Vikings have to release him because you can't have two kickers. I don't care how good they are. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see where Parker Romo goes because he's going to get a shot somewhere.
yeah, and I think it's a good thing too that we're not talking about McQuaid right now. Like it's good when the long snapper is not in the headlines for anything. He's just quietly been good. I think he kind of rushed his first snap, and Ryan Wright had a little bit of a hard time handling it way back when 4 weeks ago, but since then he seems to be pretty solid, and he hasn't seemed to be an issue, which is a good thing. So
for sure. Yeah. All right, Dustin. A few weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago now, right before the first Bears game, you had a video on Vikes Now with, I believe it was Josh Fry, and the two of you kind of went back and forth and predicted the rest of the Vikings season from that point on. I think both of you predicted a loss to the Bears, or maybe you flip-flopped on the Bears and Cardinals game. But yeah, I think you predicted a loss to the Bears and a win over the Cardinals, and then ultimately a finish of 12-5 for the Vikings. How are you feeling on that prediction? Couple weeks in now that the Vikings have won both of the Bears and the Cardinals games. Anything you want to change? Anything you still feel really good about that you said? What are you thinking about that?
So if we're 12-5 at the end of the season, we're going to go into wild card round kind of sad because that will have meant that they finished on a losing binge, if you will, 2-3. So I've been on an odyssey. I don't want to sound like some badass here that knew everything. I thought the Vikings finished 7-10, and then they started 5-0 and shattered that wrong prediction. And then when you started to look after the bye, I was like, well, 11-6. Let's meet in the middle. Then they lost 2. That prediction started to feel pretty good, but then they won 5. This is by far the least exciting in terms of fans' perception 5-game win streak I have ever seen in Minnesota sports, outside of maybe like a twin streak, where it's kind of like because they're not beating the shit out of these opponents, we're like, all right, I think this is pretty good, fellas. I mean, that's kind of how we feel. 12-5 seems fair. I do think that they will beat Atlanta and then I do think they'll beat Chicago as well, because I don't think they're going to have quite the juice to take down the Vikings at their house. But then that would mean for 12-5 to be accurate, they're going to lose the last 3. So it's I thought they would lose almost the way that they did. I thought they would lose to the Bears, and so I think 12-5 is fair. Although the way that if I had to sit down and etch it in stone right now, I only think they're going to lose 2 more, and that would probably be at Seattle because that's a house of horrors for us. And then beating the Packers twice in a season like this feels very grandiose. So I will vacillate between 12-5 and 13-4, and it's going to be really strange if we're like 13-4, 14-3, and hey, it's a 5th seed, baby. It's going to look so out of place in the standings.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that at this moment, the Vikings could be playing their first game in the playoffs at Atlanta or at Tampa Bay or something like that. And if that's the case, I mean, you're really thinking, all right, this is
what they're doing is a preview tour of all of these possible playoff teams. The Cardinals, Atlanta this week, not the Bears, but then Seattle, who looks like they're suddenly in cruise control. So we're getting like this little sampler platter of how Wild Card Weekend will look and feel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I guess this one's for both of you, and Janik will have you go first. Kind of going off the back of that question I just had for Dustin, but really focusing on that last game against the Lions. Dustin, you kind of said something a minute ago that made me think a certain way that you think about that, the way that Lions game is going to go. But for both of you, how do you think the Vikings and Lions will head into that game? Are they going to be tied or have a tied record, and that game's going to be for all the marbles? Is one team or the other not gonna matter, and maybe not even play their starters? Although I think Dan Campbell would play his starters no matter what in any game whatsoever. But yeah, Janik, how do you think the Vikings and Lions will both enter that Week 18 game?
So if I had to guess, I would say the Lions have already clinched the division. I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but they're just so good and look really unbeatable. The good news is, or for Vikings fans at least, the good news is that they are really injured. Half their defense is on IR. I think 15 players total. Maybe something gives there, and maybe that's opens the door for Minnesota to have a shot in Week 18.
All right.
So
Dustin, how do you think both teams enter that game?
All right, so it has been so damn long since the Vikings have had a final game of the regular season that's meant anything. I swear. Like, we have to go back to the 2015 season when the Vikings beat the Packers at Lambeau to win the division, when a end of season Week 17, or in this case Week 18 game, meant anything. It's usually Vikings playing the Bears, and one of the teams sucks and one of the teams decent. And so it's really mathematically, like, you know, I was saying when Will Riker was drafted, like, we're overdue to have a good kicker. We're overdue to have a meaningful end of season game. That gives me hopes that the Lions lose a game or two and then the Vikings finish within striking distance. But I ultimately would have to agree with Janik that the Lions roster building has been so sound that they're probably going to wrap up the division without a chance of us being able to nibble at it. But Janik and I discussed on the long drive home from Minneapolis to Sioux Falls, a 4-hour trip, that I swear Kevin O'Connell is also overdue to beat the Lions at some point. He hasn't done that yet. And if these two teams somehow hook up in the postseason, probably in round 2 or let's say round 3 if we're feeling really sexy, this is going to be a division game. You know, so you can throw the records out the window, the old cliche. And O'Connell is so overdue to get the best of that team that I don't think we'd all sit here and pound our chest and be like, yeah, we're going to win the NFC Championship, baby. But I'm planting that seed that eventually O'Connell is a bright enough coach that he's going to beat the Lions. And how sweet would it be to be on a stage like that?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And to go back to the last few games of the season, I think it's kind of crazy, too, that you could look at any combination of wins and losses for what these last 5 games and really just be like, I could see that happening. Yeah, I could see them winning out or losing out or win one. And, you know, any combination of that, it's like, yeah, I could see it happening. Just the teams that they have left. It's going to be a really exciting end of the season for the Vikings and hopefully a happy one. I was thinking today, it's kind of setting us all up for like, the team's going to be terrible. Oh, maybe they're not terrible. Oh, what 10-2 team wasn't leading their division, you know, in December 1st? That's kind of crazy. And then we're all just set up for like, well, all right, that's the biggest Vikings playoff loss in history or something like that. Like, that's going to be pretty sad. Evan, you got anything else for these guys?
No, it's been fun, and I'm looking forward to these last 5 games, and yeah.
What do you guys think is going to happen against Kirk and the Falcons?
Oh man, I think there's a small chance Kirk doesn't finish that game. I think at this moment he'll probably start the game. I haven't heard anything that the Falcons are going to bench him after that 4 interception performance a couple of days ago. But I don't think it's a 0% chance that Kirk starts, looks terrible, and then gets benched in that game. I'm kind of rooting for that because, you know, it means the Vikings would have won and looked great. I think we both predicted a Vikings win over the Falcons. Evan, do you have any certain thoughts about this game?
Well, a question maybe we would fire back at you guys really quick has nothing to do with the outcome of the game, but what happens before the game. Is Kirk going to get booed, or is he going to get a standing ovation at US Bank Stadium?
So I think it's probably something in between. It's not like the entire stadium is going to boo him or cheer for him. I think it's going to be split.
Yeah, and that's probably the right answer.
Yeah. I said that I would stand and clap. I'm not going to be like, you know, overly raucous or anything, but, you know, he played 6 really good years for the Vikings, and that's something to celebrate. And he's just a good dude on top of it. So it's not like it's Deshaun Watson coming back to the Vikings after 6 years.
I will be astonished if he's booed, because even though you didn't have to love the guy, and he did make us divide into like political factions, the guy never did any wrong, like personality wise whatsoever to the franchise. So it would be really anti-Minnesota nice if we show up like some bitches and start booing. So I think I would bet on the other, that we just happy, hey, way to go, and then all's fair in love and war when the game starts. One thing I want to point out that Janik and I also talked about, and Janik brought this up first, is Cousins hardly ever has back-to-back horrible games, let alone back-to-back-to-back. And if you start to look over the course of the Vikings regular season from start until right now, the two quarterbacks that have carved them up were Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff. And if you had to put a label on Cousins, he probably fits somewhere in that category of experienced, like semi-surgical. And so I'm a little paranoid that he has a bounce back game. Maybe not to the tune of a Vikings loss or anything emphatic like that. But it will be really weird in the history of Kirk Cousins as the player if he has 3 terrible games in a row. I don't know that he's ever done that, even as like a young whippersnapper in Washington. So I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I just don't see Cousins coming into this game and then throwing another 3 or 4 interceptions. It's not usually what he does.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Real quick, how was attending the Vikings Cardinals game? Watching it on TV was really frustrating until it wasn't, and then it got really exciting and kind of, I don't know, heart rate inducing. But in the stadium, it sounded like it was just quiet in there. It sounded kind of dead in there. What was it like at the game?
It was pretty much the same. It was just a terrible experience in the first half. A funny thing is, my first game at US Bank Stadium was the Colts game and the comeback game, and that was just awful in the first half. So it was not quite that, but it was pretty bad. So I'm just glad they turned it around in the second half.
Yeah. So first of all, Cardinals fans evidently don't care about their team or don't travel well, because usually a team with a winning record is well represented in the stadium by red jerseys in this case, and it was a whimper for their representation, kind of like the Houston Texans earlier this season. I was surprised how few people showed up. There have been certain games, like against the 49ers, certainly the Chiefs, or the Packers, where you're like, good Lord, this is like 40% the other team. What are we doing here? Cardinals did not do that. The main beef in the first half, so we've seen Vikings games in quarters 1 and 2 go off the rails, and you just throw your hand up in the air and be like, all right, it's one of those games, where everything goes wrong, and you get real cynical. But the defense was somewhat holding its own, and therefore it didn't feel like the whole world and game had swirled down a toilet, but it was really anemic on offense, and their blitz packages were getting to Darnold that felt like every 30 seconds, and you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? So it was cool that they came out and had kind of an adjusted attitude. I tweeted they did the Madden meme or NBA 2K meme where they sat up in their chair. That's what it felt like. It felt like they needed to be punched in the mouth at 19-6 or whatever it was, and they're like, all right, now we can start playing. That's what it seemed like. We hope that we wouldn't have to get to that point where you need that reality check. But I will continue to say it. Although the Vikings don't have the Super Bowl kudos or the dynastic dealings that the Chiefs do, this is how the Chiefs are winning each and every week. And we're like, hey, look at those gritty bastards. They won again. And when the Vikings do it, we're like, oh, I'm so mad that they're not dominant. Why can't they blow out these opponents? It's just not happening, and the Chiefs aren't doing it either. So, we'll take what we can get.
Yeah, exactly. Evan and I both attended the previous Vikings-Cardinals game at US Bank Stadium
2 years ago.
At least the last regular season one. I don't know if they played in the preseason. So I feel like they have, but I don't remember. But yeah, it didn't feel like there were a lot of Cardinals fans there in 2022 either. And I think that was one of the last rushing touchdowns Kirk Cousins had. That long, crazy rushing touchdown. But, and that one came down to the wire too. I think it was higher scoring, but still an exciting game, and not a ton of Cardinals fans there. Janik, I do want to say I'm glad that even though you blamed me for Parker Romo missing that kick, I said I wanted a Parker Romo jersey. I'm glad that it all worked out in the end.
I'm glad it did.
We're gonna have such a unique.
Parker Romo jersey. That'd be kind of cool to have.
We're going to have a unique story and odyssey with Parker Romo, assuming he gets waived in a week or two, because usually we already follow former players, with John Desai, or we like to see them do well. In Stephon Diggs' case, I hope he'd do well in Buffalo. But this guy is going to be so fresh in our memory. He won't leave because of he's too expensive, or the Vikings went in another direction in free agency. He was just a rental that held down a spot where the Vikings have historically been snake bitten. So it's going to be so weird to see. I want him to go to the AFC, so he doesn't have to. We don't have to see him. And not that he's an absolute baller. Mm-hmm. But he has this really unique case where he's probably going to leave in the middle of the season. He's built up a resume with the Vikings that shows he has the clutch gene. By the way, he hit a 50 blah, blah, blah yarder on Sunday. So he's got all the tools, and it's going to be cool to see where he lands, hopefully in the AFC, because I don't know. I have a feeling that guy is going to go latch on to whoever needs a kicker, probably in the offseason, and just stays there for 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, he feels like he's solidified himself enough to get, not just a training camp contract. He's going to go somewhere because he's proven he can kick in the league. Mm-hmm. I think just add this next scenario to the most Vikings things ever is if the Vikings do somehow make it to the big game, which is already crazy enough to think about. But then Parker Romo goes to an AFC team. I alluded to it earlier. I think the Ravens, they're looking a little shaky with probably the GOAT kicker outside of Vinatieri, Justin Tucker. He's had a couple of weird games. I mean, if he ultimately sucks it up enough, you got to move on from a guy that can't make a kick. I don't care who he is. But if the Ravens sign Parker Romo, and then the football gods hate Vikings fans enough, the Ravens and Vikings in the Super Bowl, and Parker Romo kicking a 62-yard kick to beat the Vikings, that would just be the most Vikings thing ever. I think that would be the end of the Skol Hop. I think that scenario would do it. All right. Well,
the Ravens are in such a weird spot though, because they have the Hall of Fame kicker, and he's had a real bad stretch, the first of his career. And so normally you would say all right, let's show some loyalty, let's suck it up, he's going to figure it out. But you can only say that so many times when you're getting into December and January before it fucks up your playoff hopes and your Super Bowl aspirations. And so it'll be a question of undying loyalty. Or see ya. I just don't think they say see ya. But if this continues, where hey, he only missed 2 field goals today. If it keeps getting worse, it's really young for him to be completely washed. Kickers can usually, good ones, go until 37, 38, in Vinatieri's case, forever. So it's an odd paradox, because normally, as Vikings fans, we'd be like, screw that guy, get him the hell out of here. But the Ravens don't necessarily have those problems, and so they have to really think, will this guy figure it out or not?
And to add on to that, not too often does a kicker who is capable of making 50-plus yard field goals and has had a recent string of looking really good, like Parker Romo has the last few weeks, they don't typically just become available for pretty much free right before the playoffs. So, I mean, it's mostly a joke, but I don't think it's unrealistic to think the Ravens could look to pick him up if they're having kicking woes.
Yeah, especially if Riker is back and healthy.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
So,
all right, guys. Before we get your final Falcons-Vikings predictions really quick, anything both of you want to plug? I know, Dustin, we like to have you give you a minute or two to plug anything and everything, but Janik, we want you to plug anything and everything you're working on too. So where can we find you?
So you can find me on Twitter, Janik Eckardt, is the handle. Just my name, and I'm writing at Purple PTSD, and sometimes on Vikings territory now. So, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Okay, and Dustin?
Yeah, Dust Baker on Twitter. The same thing on Blue Sky for those that have ventured over there. VikingsTerritory.com for the daily onslaught of information. Vikes Now on YouTube. And then Janik and I have a site called DraftHuddle.com that focuses on rookies and the draft that is not Vikings focused, that we are getting off the ground over the last couple months. So that's where you can find us.
Awesome. And for our watchers and our viewers and listeners, we'll link everything for both these guys in the descriptions below. So absolutely be sure to check them out if you haven't already. I can personally say both Janik and Dustin have significantly enhanced my Vikings fandom. They're great follows, and if you're not following them already, you're doing it wrong because they're great. Anything else, Evan?
No, thanks guys for coming on. We really appreciate you giving us some time, especially during Monday Night Football, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you guys again soon.
All right, really quick, Vikings, Falcons, score prediction.
So let's see. I could really see it go each way. Guess it depends on how Kirk and Darnold are playing. So I'm going to pick Vikings win 24-20.
Okay.
I have the Vikings 31-24. I think Kirk Cousins will bounce back. I don't think it'll be good enough to beat the Vikings. And I want to point out that the last 2 games, we've asked Sam Darnold for game-winning drives, clutch situations, and he's really showed up. We spent the first 2 months trying to figure out if the Vikings as a team were going to collapse because that's so ingrained in our DNA from 2016 and 2003. We didn't even really get to the part of wondering if Darnold could be clutch when they were trailing. And lo and behold, especially at Soldier Field, when that game felt like it was cooked, he methodically led them downfield, found like every playmaker with a big name in overtime. And then last week, when things were going bad in general, everybody got their poop in a group, and especially him on that final drive. Each time they've asked him for a big moment, he's delivered, and each time they've asked him to bounce back from something bad, like the Jaguars game, he has. And you're kind of starting to see why this guy was the 3rd overall pick. So I will say, even though he probably won't be a Viking for that long because we got J.J. McCarthy for that, I want this guy to bounce around to every Shanahan coach that there is, whether it is LaFleur, O'Connell, Zach Taylor. I want him to be properly taken care of in the right offensive system so that he can showcase this ability. He does, however, need to get the ball out a little faster. That was driving Janik and I nuts in the first half.
Yep, I couldn't agree more with that last statement. I said Vikings 28-20. Evan, what was your prediction?
35-21.
Ooh, sweet.
A little bit of a bigger margin for the Vikings.
We will take it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'd love to have both of you on again, really anytime you want. Dustin, I know we kind of skipped. We were on like an every month schedule for you to come on, and however it worked, we just accidentally missed you on November. So thanks for coming on this month. Janik, open door anytime you want to come on, have things to say. Not that you don't have every other route to talk about the Vikings, but
put us on the schedule right the first week of January because Janik will still be in the States. Okay.
Nice, awesome.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
All right, take it easy.
All right, what do you say we talk about this upcoming game? Vikings hosting the Falcons December 8th, noon game at home. Should be loud in that place.
Yeah, should be exciting. This might have been one of the first ones that Vikings fans circled on the calendar when the schedule came out, because at least as of right now, the Falcons starting quarterback is an old friend.
Yeah. Do you think Kirk Cousins will get booed walking out of the tunnel
that's
at US
tough.
Bank?
I don't like that. If you're a Vikings fan, you're going to be at the game. Don't boo Kirk Cousins. I feel like when he was with the Vikings, he gave the team everything he had, up or down, good or bad. You can't say he was a villain, especially after it was everyone in the world's eyes were opened after the quarterback series on Netflix that he seems to be a genuine good dude. And even when it came down to the wire, I think everybody really knew like the end of the Kirk Cousins era is coming, and good for him. He got a heck of a lot of money from Atlanta. Mm-hmm. It seems like he's kind of stealing a lot of money from Atlanta right now. And at the end of the day, even if he was playing like an MVP for the Falcons right now, his contract was going to be too much for the Vikings to commit to anyways. And I think ultimately the Vikings made the best decision in letting that era end.
Yeah, I think you said it a lot in the episodes that we recorded last year, kind of leading up to Kirk's departure. Kirk's a really good businessman.
Oh, yeah.
And he made a heck of a business deal, and it's not necessarily paying off for the Falcons, but they bought themselves some insurance with that rookie quarterback that they drafted.
Yeah, which everybody, myself included, I think you too, was like, what are they doing? Like, that's such a crazy move after giving, $160, $180 million almost to one guy and then immediately drafting his backup.
But if you think about it, right, Kirk Cousins is what, 37, 38 years old?
Is that how old he is?
No, he's 36. He's going to turn 37 this next year. But he's still on the older end of things for quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, he's not too far behind Aaron Rodgers. So
just a few years. I mean, honestly, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm with you on the booing thing. We'll backtrack to that for a second.
Don't boo him.
I hope fans out there don't boo Kirk Cousins. He's a great guy. He gave everything, like you said, to this franchise while he was there for 6 years. It was a good 6 years, and he played really well. It was frustrating at times, but there were a lot of good moments as well. And like you said, the person himself, football aside, he's just a great guy and doesn't deserve that sort of treatment. So I hope that he gets a good standing ovation as he comes out of the tunnel. It'll be a mixed...
I don't know about an ovation. I feel like it could just be, just another player on the other side. I mean...
if he doesn't get booed, he'll get something else, and I think it'll be positive, and I think Minnesota fans should show him some love.
Yeah.
So,
I mean...
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. I can see that thought process. I wouldn't be... standing and clapping or standing and booing either way. It's just
I would stand and clap.
Okay, and that's fine. That's
I'm not gonna lose my mind if I were there, but I would stand and clap. I would give him a nice, hey, we appreciate you, man. We're gonna kick your butt now.
Well, and that's the thing. I hope the Vikings win. I think they should. I think the better team over the Falcons right now. I won't give my prediction quite yet, but I think if you just look at the quarterback position, if you just look at numbers, Sam Darnold's playing better than Kirk Cousins right now.
Oh, in almost every statistical category he is.
And it's not night and day. It's not like, we have, an elite MVP compared to a guy that hasn't thrown a touchdown in years and years and years. They're closer than it would seem, but especially recently, a month ago, we were talking about, darn it, Sam Darnold can't stop throwing picks, and every time he throws to Justin Jefferson, he's forcing it, and it gets intercepted. Outside of a pitch that was fumbled that wasn't necessarily his fault a few games ago, Darnold has been darn near perfect. He has been lights out at times. He has closed out the last 2 games and been elite, and almost single-handedly won the last 2 games himself, just with how stone cold he's been. And definitely recently, there's no argument. I think Sam Darnold is the better quarterback at the moment, and genuinely, if there was some magic wand that we could, regardless of contract, regardless of money, regardless of age or anything, if we could just swap quarterbacks right now, Darnold for Cousins, I wouldn't do it. I'm a fan of Darnold, and I think he's the better quarterback for the Vikings right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to compare, because you can do this on stathead.com.
Oh yeah.
So I'm just trying to pull up. At first, it was just all their career statistics. And of course, Kirk is going to be better across his entire career. But this season, obviously, Sam Darnold has the better record at 10-2. He has a better completion percentage by just 0.2%, 67.6. Kirk actually has more yards, just over 3,000 to Sam Darnold's just under 3,000.
About 100-yard difference. Literally exactly 100-yard
difference. 100-yard difference. Yep. Now that I look at that more closely. Yards per attempt, Darnold's a little bit higher, but yards per game, Cousins is a little higher. And then in all the other categories, touchdowns, interceptions, passer rating, rush attempts, yards, fantasy points even, Sam Darnold is ahead.
Yeah.
So it's marginal in some areas, but I think overall the product on the field, and obviously the category that matters most, wins.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Sam Darnold is the better quarterback, and it was a great move for the Vikings franchise to get Sam Darnold on a dime and watch the $40 million man head south.
Yeah, and the other side of it, which everybody knows, I'm not breaking news, but letting Kirk Cousins walk and Danielle Hunter walk allowed the Vikings a lot of space to be able to sign guys like Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Grenard and Blake Cashman, and then lock down Christian Darrisaw, and it probably made the Justin Jefferson deal easier to do. And yeah, I think if you just look at 2024 cap, Cousins and Hunter are still kind of on it, so the cap dollars this year aren't too different than they would have been if they would have kept Hunter and Cousins. But when you look at the future, that's when you're able to say, like, okay, we can justify a Jonathan Grenard contract because the future dollars are more freed up. Otherwise, they would have been paying, more future dollars to Cousins and Hunter. But yeah, I think this team is better off post Cousins era, at least in the short term, which we're only 12 games out of the Cousins era. I think it would be tough to argue against the idea that the team is better off. The Vikings are a better team.
So here's a question for you. Which quarterback is more likely to stay with their current team next season?
I think you have to give it to Cousins just based off dollars.
Yeah.
The Vikings would be, if you're saying Darnold to stay with the Vikings or Cousins to stay with the Falcons. Yeah, I mean, regardless, Cousins threw 4 picks and looked pretty awful last week, but that's 1 week. They're not going to let go of the $180 million man for a couple of bad games, even if you do draft, Michael Penix in the top 10. I think Cousins is a Falcon at least next season too. But yeah, I think Sam Darnold, he has written his ticket. I said it. I think I told it to Forrest and you last week on episode 68. Darnold at this moment is probably looking at a contract anywhere. I mean, easily between $25 and $30 million a year next year for probably 3, 4, 5-ish years. Probably more of that, 3 or 4. And I think the Vikings are already planning to not go that route, which is fine. That's been the plan the whole time, I think, for the Vikings and for Sam Darnold to kind of resurrect his career and move on.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I think it's more likely that Kirk Cousins ends up sticking around with Atlanta. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion at this point, barring like a Super Bowl victory for the Vikings, that Sam Darnold is gone. Mm-hmm. I think fans would be pounding the table for that guy to be back if he won. Oh, everything.
He wins a Super Bowl or MVP. Like, yeah, how do you let a guy like that walk, regardless of previous plans?
Right.
I'm not predicting either of those things to happen. I don't think you are either. But
I'm not either. I'm just saying, barring that,
yeah,
I think he's gone, and I think, I think the Falcons paid a lot of money. They're not just going to watch that money walk out the door like the Giants watched Daniel Jones, whatever they're paying him to not play for them anymore, and for him to sit on the Vikings practice squad that's kind of crazy if you're an organization, and it's, I think, kind of irresponsible with the money that you've been
people would get fired.
So
speaking of making a lot of investments, the Falcons also made another big investment at the quarterback position. Michael Penix, he was the 8th or 9th overall pick, definitely top 10.
Yeah.
So that's another investment that the Falcons are not going to just let go. Kirk Cousins had a rough game last week. He hasn't looked great. He hasn't looked amazing all season, and the win total's not there. Do you think the Falcons bench Cousins this week against Minnesota, or do you think they would let it go at least another couple of weeks?
I don't think so, because as far as I know, and I'm going to look this up quick because I just don't want to sound stupid, but the Falcons are still in the mix.
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Like the NFC South and the NFC West are very much up for grabs. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at it right now. The Falcons and the Buccaneers are tied for the division lead in the NFC South at 6-6. Mm-hmm. So it's very much up for grabs, and the Saints, to be honest, are still kind of in there. I don't know that that's going to happen, especially after firing their coach several weeks ago now. But I don't see Michael Penix coming in until there's garbage time, until there are games that don't matter anymore. The Falcons are eliminated, and Kirk Cousins has told the coaching staff and the front office, like, yeah, I'm done. I'm an old man. Let me rest. Mm-hmm. Put the young kid in. I'll be on the sideline and wear a headset and coach him up a little bit. But
all right,
I don't know. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I don't predict as of this moment the Falcons announcing a quarterback change prior to the game. But if Kirk comes out, and he very well could come to Minnesota and throw 5 touchdowns and look like the second coming of Tom Brady in his prime. I hope that doesn't happen, but the Vikings are notorious for letting, the opposing team's quarterback look great. Not all the time, but enough that we've noticed it. But I really think if Kirk were to come out in Minnesota and throw 2 or 3 picks, in the first half or something, a benching is not outside of the realm of possibility. I just think he's at least going to start the game.
I don't think week to week. I don't think Kirk is benched until the Falcons are out. But I think, yes, if he has another bad game this weekend, which let's hope so, that'd be awesome.
Here for it.
and US Bank would be rocking if that happened. But yeah, I wouldn't throw out a mid-game benching if the game is way out of hand. He's played terribly, and it's time for Michael Penix to get some reps.
Yeah, I'd be okay with it as long as, the Vikings still win and the Michael Penix resurgence or, doesn't, somehow surge the Falcons over the Vikings in that game. Anyways, all that to say, we probably talked way too much about the Falcons and the Vikings, but that's just the way it goes when your franchise quarterback is now on a different team. Do you have a too early prediction?
Yeah, I think this will be a fairly easy win for the Vikings, especially considering the struggles that the Falcons had last week, and Kirk throwing 4 interceptions. I wish there was a stat out there that we could dial in on Kirk. How does he play after those really bad games? As Vikings fans, we should know that. I don't off the top of my head, but I'm going to say the Vikings do pretty well. I still think this offense struggles. And I don't think the Falcons' defense is anything to write home about. But I did not expect the Vikings to struggle against the Cardinals.
They struggled till they didn't.
Yeah,
which was frustrating. They struggled a lot, and then they didn't.
It was super frustrating. I think those things still continue to frustrate us as fans. Maybe not so much the coaching staff and the players, because they've got it figured out and they're willing to put up with some stuff in the first half if they can figure it out in the second half, which seems to be the way the Vikings have been playing lately. Is not all season, because early on in the season they could do no wrong in the first quarter, and they just marched down and scored 2 or 3 touchdowns, boom, 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 and then made teams play catch up. But lately, really since the bye week or a few weeks after that, it's been, man, we can't do anything in the first quarter. I think that continues. I think it's a continuation of this thread of Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell trying to figure things out, trying to get on the same page. And what do we do when our game plan, I'm not going to call it a script, but the game plan starts to turn sideways, when Aaron Jones fumbles 3 plays into the game or whatever? How do we get back on track from those things? And I think that's going to continue to work itself out, and it'll be frustrating for a while. But score prediction, I'm going to say 35-21.
Vikings. Okay. All right. It's a good prediction. I think it'll be close just for the emotional factor. I think maybe the Falcons' last game and Kirk's terrible performance might have been a little bit of a trap game looking ahead to, oh man, maybe Kirk had this game circled for a while too.
Wouldn't surprise me.
The knock on Kirk was, primetime games or big time games. He was a little shaky, and I think for him this could be a little bit of a big time game. But I still think he plays better than he did last week against, who did they lose to? The Falcons.
I don't even know. I wasn't even paying attention.
I still think he plays better than he did last week. But
Chargers.
I think it's going to be more like a 28-20 game Vikings.
All right.
Which is really similar to yours. It's just 1 touchdown fewer, pretty much.
Yeah, I think the Vikings will struggle early on, but then they'll get into their rhythm. And that's where I think the 5 touchdowns come in. I think they get maybe 1 or 2 in the first half, and then they really pour it on in the second half and put the game out of reach.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
There you go. All right, man. Let's close this thing out. Before we do, what'd you think of this Moss from Keg Creek Brewing?
Yeah, I mean, Keg Creek, just like all of the other great Iowa breweries, does a great job. I haven't had the Moss before, but I really liked it. It's a nice, light flavor. We talked about the beer in a spear earlier. It kind of makes me want to throw a pickle in here right now. But yeah, we really gave our full opinions on the TikTok, which that'll be our beer review is going to be on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, really any of our socials. But yeah, I don't know what else I can say other than it's really good. You should try it.
Yeah, it makes me want to have some tacos. I'm ready for some tacos right now. That'd be great. Well, looking ahead to next week, obviously we will recap this Kirk Cousins revenge game against the Vikings. Hopefully he gets a pleasant welcome at US Bank Stadium. We'll see what happens there. But we both picked the Vikings to win that game in our preseason picks. So if the Vikings Vikings win, we're off the hook for the Wheel of Purple Punishments.
Yeah.
But if the Vikings lose, we are both on the hook. So that'll be an interesting development there. We'll see if Kirk can pull out a win or not.
Yeah,
at US
and
Bank.
I looked ahead. So there's 5 games left, including this Falcons game. Of those, we picked differently, I believe, in 3 of them.
Okay.
So this Falcons game, we both picked the same way, and then there's another one that we both picked the same way. I forget which one. But there's 3 other ones that one of us picked a win and one of us picked a loss. So
We definitely have 3 spins coming up,
absolutely.
at the very least.
So I really hope you have to do the waxing
the
of the limb.
Not looking forward to that. That's going to be so bad.
But yeah, it'll be a fun segment here to finish out the season, and we should figure something out for the playoffs too.
Yeah. Maybe whatever's left on the wheel, we just kind of make our predictions and go from there.
Sounds good.
We'll figure that out. We mentioned TikTok and YouTube and I think Facebook already. Where else can people find us out there on the interwebs?
We are pretty much on every social. Earlier, Dustin, when he was plugging his stuff, he mentioned even Blue Sky. We're on Blue Sky as well.
Yep.
Just really everywhere, the Skol Hop. Maybe there's an underscore somewhere in there for a different one. But if you Google the Skol Hop, you will find our Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, TikTok, everything. I'm wondering. I don't think we're on Threads technically, even though Forrest kind of called us out last week about that. But also our website too. That's probably just the best conglomeration of all of our stuff is theskolhop.com.
Yeah, and you can find links to everything that we're on right there on theskolhop.com. You can also find links to some of the merch that we sell. So yeah, if you've liked any of the shirts that you've seen us promote, or if you like this design down here and you want a shirt with that logo on it, you can definitely get one at our TeePublic. We've got a link to that there as well.
I feel like it's going to be relevant the rest of the year. That Sammy D logo that your wife graciously made up for us, that's a fun shirt. That's a cool shirt. Get it before it's irrelevant. We will always have Sammy D in our hearts in Minnesota, but maybe not so much after this year, but either way, we can always remember him and this great season by that shirt.
She was working on another Sam Darnold design yesterday during the game. So that's kind of what she does during the game is she'll watch, of course, but she's kind of on her iPad doing her thing and designing up some cool stuff for us. So keep your eye out for some other stuff. Her store is also linked down below if you're interested in any of her stuff. And she's got some more of the feminine type Vikings stuff. Yeah. She's got a lot of other stuff that she promotes too on her store, but there's some Viking stuff in there.
I actually got my wife a sweatshirt of one of your wife's designs on her store. It just says Skol Vikes, and it's pretty cool. But
check it out. Well, I really had a good time today. I liked this beer a lot. I might have to get this beer the next time we have taco night.
Yeah.
I enjoyed talking to Dustin and Janik, and I also enjoyed watching you do the Sprite challenge. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, check out all of Dustin and Janik's stuff everywhere that they already mentioned. We'll have it all linked below. Also, check out our stuff and let us know if you like when we have other people on too. It's a lot of fun for us, but maybe we should do it more often.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we do this every week, and it never gets old.
Yeah. All right. Well, until next week.
Skol.
Skol.
Hey Vikings fans, Evan here from the Skol Hop, and we just wanted to say thank you again so much for listening to the Skol Hop, and we also wanted to take one more opportunity to let you know that this episode of the Skol Hop has been brought to you by Big Top Ventures. If you're considering taking an all-inclusive trip to either Mexico or Jamaica, reach out to our friends at Big Top Ventures at bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Once again, that's bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. You can get the lowest rate possible on several all-inclusive resorts throughout the region. Big Top Ventures. Step right up to your next big adventure. And thanks again for listening to the Skol Hop. Skol.